Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to this very special online event, Your Path Home, Exploring Shamanic Gateways to Your Destiny. Welcome. Thank you for joining me in this virtual sacred space. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. Please, as you arrive, introduce yourself and just type your name in the chat box that you see there and maybe where you're joining from. Maybe you want to share a little bit about your intention for this webinar today. So we'll give everyone just a minute or so to arrive and to settle in. So just type your name into the chat box. I see we have Kathy with us and Cecilia. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm Jen Samalyuk. I'm your host for today's special event, Your Path Home, where we'll be exploring shamanic gateways to your destiny. I'm a visionary coach, a shamanic healer, and founder of Sacred Inspiration, which is a spirit-powered endeavor dedicated to co-creating peace on Earth by bringing consciousness-rising, healing, and transformative events to our global community. And with me today, I am truly honored and very grateful to have Shannon and Marv Harwood on this call. So welcome. Hi, Shannon and Marv. How are you?
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here today.
We're good, Jen. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, wonderful. For those of our participants who are not familiar with your work, I'll share a little bit about each of you just to get us started. So Shannon Harwood, or Buffalo Rock Woman, is a shamanic practitioner, instructor, and healer who has devoted the last 30 years of her life to shamanic writing, teaching, and practice. She was tutored for more than 15 years and was named Iniskimaki by native spiritual elder Josephine Crowshoe, and she's a graduate of the Dr. Alberto Villoldo's programs at the Four Winds Society. She's trained with the psychologist Dr. Carl Greer. And Shannon is a public speaker and lecturer on the subjects of tarot, astrology, and the works of Edgar Cayce. And she's a shamanic instructor and director at Kanapi School of Shamanism in Alberta, as well as the director and developer of Kanapi Kids, federally licensed charity. Shannon dedicated 8 years of her life to write It Depends on Who's Looking, the Archetype Project, a study of the universality of the archetypal energies referred to in religion, folklore, and mythology, and the creator of the Archetype Project, an original online self-help program for individuals. Welcome, Shannon. And Marv Harwood has been a practicing shaman, teacher, and healer for more than 40 years. His training in the field started 60 years ago when, as a young man, he began learning natural medicine and healing from local native elders. And among his notable mentors are Dr. Joe Crowshoe, who gave him the name Eaglehead, and Dr. Alberto Villoldo, founder of the Four Winds Society, psychologist Dr. Carl Greer, and Don Humberto Quispe, the Paco elder and Cuero of the Cuero Nation in Peru. In addition to the 15 years of tutorship with Dr. Joe Crowshoe, Marv is also a certified graduate of the Four Winds Society, and he's the director of Kanapi School of Shamanism, developer of shamanic training courses and curriculums, the developer and director of the federally licensed charity Shamanic Kids, and the public speaker on the role of shamanism in our lives, as well as a lead shamanic ceremonialist, trainer of shamanism in the business world, and a recognized shamanic healer and life coach, as well as a sacred site guide and interpreter. Wow. It sounds like you both have had incredible journeys, and I'm very, very excited to be speaking with you. So to begin, I'm sure we have many of our participants today who are familiar with shamanism, but for those who may not be or who are new to the work, can you briefly share a little bit about what shamanism is, especially as it relates to our fascinating topics for today, our path home and our destiny?
Go ahead.
Sure. Be delighted to. Shamanism is, I guess you'd have to say it's far beyond just a practice or a principle or a philosophy. It's more a way of life. It's the way that you choose to walk in the world. For us, shamanism has become so innate and a part of our day-to-day lives that it makes up all that we think, do, see, feel. It's the way we interpret our surroundings. So it's more than just perceptions and the way that you intuit. It's more the way you react to the information that comes to you, what you send back out into the world. It's an interchange. How it relates to the topic of the shamanic gateways. Margie, do you want to touch on that?
Well, the shamanic gateways that we're speaking about is how you integrate yourself with your surroundings, the natural surroundings, with other people in your surroundings. There's many, many pathways that lead to this same goal. So we're privileged to have 3 different ones that we work with, predominantly in our school. But all of them are different methods that lead you pretty much to the same type of goal. So a very interesting study and a way of walking very peacefully in the world.
Wow, sounds wonderful. Yeah. Can you share with us a little bit about some of these gateways that you teach about?
Sure. The first one, I guess, we'll touch on. Let's hit the animistic there, or what we term the animistic. This particular gateway, people are drawn to this gateway when they have a real fascination with nature, in particular. What it does, Marty mentioned that it is just another road or pathway to the same goal. But what you use, the archetypes that you engage and work with in the animistic, are very nature-based. In the Native American, especially the North American, they tended to use the animals around them that they saw and worked with every day, and the plant medicine that they were accustomed to seeing growing there on the prairies, and the birds that were with them day in, day out. Whereas the next gateway that I'll touch on, for example, what we loosely term the energetic gateway, this is the path of the South American indigenous people, and they too have the archetypes, and they use the ones that they were more familiar with, but their approach to that journey, the path to the same goal, is way more energetically based, and the animistic is far more earthly based. And finally, the destinistic stream that we teach, this originated way back in mythology. And now these archetypes are the archetypes of astrology and tarot and the ancient philosophies of the Greeks and the Romans and the Egyptians. They hold all the same energies of both the animistic and the energetic. They've just got different labels like Zeus, the king of gods, and labels like Eris, the god of war. But the energetics are exactly the same. So they take you to the same place, but through a very different route.
Oh, that sounds fascinating. Thank you so much. So then, how do these different pathways relate to, you say, it's one place that we're really headed towards. So what is this place? How would you describe that?
I would describe, I guess there really is no ultimate goal, because when you embark on the shamanic path, it's a lifetime of learning and experience. The goal is to become one. One of our old mentors, when I asked him one day who he was, he got quite a smile on his face and he said, "I'm the trees, I'm the elk, I'm the deer, I'm the salmon." And at that point, I didn't understand what he meant. I've come since to learn that what he meant was quite simply that we are a part of a grand system and a grand scheme. We're no better than or no less than any of the parts of this grand scheme that we live in. And when we come to recognize that, that's the goal of the shamanic paths. And along the way, we encounter events that require healing. So it gives us methods of healing ourselves, of healing others, of getting away from the wounds that slow us up in everyday life and open us up on a much freer path towards becoming one with our surroundings.
Wow, that's really beautiful. It's very moving. And that's what I find from this work too, when you really step into that place of oneness. It's incredibly powerful. So yeah, I mean, when someone is considering these different pathways, how do they know which one is right for them?
By letting people experience a little of the three that we teach, or many of the others that are out there, letting them experience and feel what's right for them. And the key word is feel, because one of the things that we teach very strongly in our classes is to get out of your head. Our heads are pretty badly influenced by the society in which we live and all the goings on there, but our feelings are much truer. And if we tend to put our attention on how we feel about something, that's our higher self speaking with us. And it's usually very accurate, very good guidance. So when people get to experience the different pathways, soon they will come to one that feels right to them. And we encourage them to pay attention to that feeling and then begin to pursue that particular pathway. Inevitably, we find that as they pursue that pathway, they start to fold some of the teachings of the other pathways into it, so that what's right for that person may not be suitable for the next person, or vice versa. But they all find their own mix and their own levels of the different pathways, and ultimately they take you towards the goal that we're all seeking, of oneness.
Oh, yeah, so it doesn't really matter where you start. Yeah, that's really, really fascinating as well. Can you please speak a little bit about how the shamanic path to our destiny can help us collectively move into a place of balance and peace on a global scale?
I would say that our experience of our classes has been interesting in a way that is almost indescribable. We watch the students and ourselves, because we never cease to learn, and we probably learn as much from them as they do from us. But we watch them grow, and as they grow, they start to change in a way that makes them move into a place where life is not as challenging, where they know where they want to focus their energy. And what becomes much more fascinating is how they see others in their life start to shift and change and adapt as they make these changes in their lives. And they don't even need to talk about it. They don't even need to share it. Somehow, energetically, those shifts and changes internally affect everyone around us, whether it's our family, our friends, our coworkers, our neighbors. As you change, your world changes. And as your world changes, you change again to adapt to that. And so in a very profound way, we not only create our reality as we move forward in life, we watch other people around us recreate their reality. And so I don't think that healing is ever really entirely personal. It's always global.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that, Shan. Marv, would you like to add anything to that at all?
There's so much to add, it's difficult to know where to begin. But picking up on what Shannon said, as a person steps into these pathways and begins the path of healing, of getting rid of or offloading those things that no longer serve them. And they come more and more into alignment with their surroundings. As Shannon mentioned, those energetics emanate from the individual, and the people around them instinctively are drawn to them because there's changes, they feel it. One of the examples that I find quite fascinating is many times we will be in different parts of the world vacationing in one of the cities in a restaurant, and it's difficult to count the number of times that somebody who is a perfect stranger has come up and sat down at a table with us and just started talking. They have no idea why they did it, but as the conversation goes on, those people finally divulge that they need help with something, and they have an instinctive knowing that we may be in a position to help them. And that sort of emanation from the individual is what Shannon's talking about. Is a person comes to join our school, starts taking the courses, and pretty soon their circle of friends around them notices changes. And the circle of friends begin to adapt to those changes, and it begins to spread outward. It's a wonderful thing to see the change in people and how they're much more peaceful in their lives.
That is powerful. I love that. And you just sit right down beside you because they're gravitating to what's going to help them heal, and it's just incredible. That's the divine universe at work. And I wonder, how would someone who wants to develop their gifts or maybe their intuitive faculties, how does that fit into this work? Or maybe it fits more into one of the pathways, or does it help? Does it not matter which path you're on?
That's actually a very good question, Jen, because in our Western world, we're trained by consensual reality that if you can't touch it, taste it, hear it, smell it, categorize it with a bunch of words, it's very suspect. As shamans, we know that the reverse of that is true. And when people first come and engage in this work, they're very head bound. In other words, they're dealing with their worlds at what we call the literal level. And the literal is all about language, things that you can touch, taste, hear, talk about, categorize. But as they begin to work into the shamanic pathway, they come more and more to trust their feelings and their sensations. But the real key that we find is having to get people at the very beginning to start trusting that feeling, trusting that knowing that they have deep within themselves, because oftentimes it's at complete odds with what their head is saying to them. So the beginning of it is to get them to trust their feelings and go with what they're getting, what their intuition tells them, all of those things that we have tended to push aside because society tells us they're suspect. Shamans know that they're not.
Yeah. And especially, I mean, I find with a lot of individuals who have encountered a lot of trauma, a lot of challenges, that programming is much deeper ingrained, and then it's you know, so you lose some of that contact, that connection. So yeah, it's that the outside world is constantly affecting us, but if we're not aware of our relationship with that, then we can really lose ourselves to some of these external forces that they're not to our benefit, they're not to our wholeness. And I guess I'm wondering it now, how does the ego prophecy and conjure prophecy fit into all of this?
Well, just just to back up a little bit, and then we'll move forward into the work of the prophecy. I was in a class many, many, many years ago with Dr. Alberto Vialdo. And one of the students in the class, we were in the middle of doing an exercise, and this particular student seemed quite frustrated, and Dr. Vialdo walked over and asked her what the problem was. And she launched into quite a long description of what was going on with her, and she ended up with the question, how do I know this is just not my imagination? Dr. Vialdo had a big smile on his face, and he said, what's the difference? And it really sums it up, as she had started to listen to her higher self, but we've had it essentially erased from us by society saying, oh, that's just your imagination, and denigrating what it's supposed to be doing for us. So interestingly enough, that very sort of thing segues over to the prophecy of the eagle and the condor. And in order to understand it, you have to start trusting yourself, what you're getting deep down inside when you journey to the condor or journey to the eagle, because they represent the north and the south flying together, but on a deeper level, they represent the coming together as equals of the masculine and the feminine. The eagle has held the skies for a long time. In other words, the masculine has overshadowed the feminine, but the condor, representing the feminine, is certainly coming on stronger and stronger as we see more and more examples of them sharing the skies together. That's what shamanism is about, is to bring things into balance.
That's beautiful. And that's also very helpful, especially with everything that's happening on the planet today. It can get very overwhelming and distracting, and we start to think that there's nothing we can do. We feel helpless, we feel disempowered, when there really is a lot we can do. And that's what this path is about. And from what I hear you saying, it's really our personal healing work is the starting point to co-creating that world that we want to live in.
You could talk about the symposium. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, sure. Margaret just whispered in my ear that this might be a good opportunity to talk about the symposium that we very recently hosted. We brought together members of the school and friends and the relatives and anyone who wanted to join, because we really did want to take a look at the fact that a lot of people are feeling very fearful, very overwhelmed with what's going on in the world, not just the climate, but the political world, the social world, and there was a lot of fear involved. So we hosted a symposium where people broke into groups and did journey work to start to put their feelings around, not so much their heads around, but their feelings around what was really behind what was going on in the world. And they broke out into focus groups where they could start to brainstorm and see what they could do, not just on the literal level, but up on the mythic and the energetic, to not only to start to make some changes in the world externally, but changes internally to start to take a look at that fear from a very different perspective. And yeah, some of the things that have come out of that symposium are really quite, not just encouraging, but inspiring about what the future might hold for all of us.
Wow, that's incredible. So then it's really working with at the root or the source of some of these things. Would you say that that's accurate when you're working on that mythic or energetic level?
I would say absolutely. That's perfectly accurate. In some of the journey work, they went directly to Mother Earth to ask her first if she wanted our help. We don't want to impose on any element in nature or the universe our own ideas and perceptions that things are necessarily bad or wrong. So that was one of the very first questions is, dear Mother, do you want us to intervene?
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. I just wanted to share with you, actually, there was also a comment from one of the participants. Shirley mentioned that the eagle and condor coming together is exactly the feeling that's arising in me. That's what she wrote. That's amazing, Shirley. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Yeah, so going back to some of these pathways that we've been talking about, is there anything else that you can kind of mention about how they compare and how they relate to this global shift that we're creating from that energetic level? But can you potentially work towards that from any of the directions?
Yes, you can work from any of the directions. The key word that I would offer up to people is awareness. The more you become aware of your surroundings and the more you become aware of yourself, the more you can come into alignment with your surroundings, because awareness allows you to start thinking and questioning. And when you start questioning, why am I doing this? Why am I not doing that? That's the beginnings of a shamanic practice. And regardless of which of the streams or gateways you choose to work in, the questioning is all the same. In the energetic shamanism, you're talking very much about your own behavior and your own interaction with other people and your surroundings. In the animistic, you use bird and animal guides, and you use their attributes. One of the key examples that we can call on here in the animistic, in today's world, both Shannon and I have quite a strong one-on-one healing practice with people. And one of the most common things that I have come to me in the form of somebody questioning what's going on in their life is people being blindsided. And they get blindsided in work, they get blindsided in relationships, they get blindsided in everyday life. So many of these people around the area that we live are very familiar with the white-tailed deer. We've got them all over the place. Some of our mentors taught us to follow very strongly what different birds and animals do and their attributes. So I chose the white-tailed deer, and I began to use that with a lot of the people that come to me. The lessons of the deer are very simply that a deer uses all of its senses before it goes charging into a clearing. It will stand in the fringe of trees around a clearing, and you'll see it. It will sniff the air. It'll look around with its eyes. You'll see its ears going back and forth, and you'll see its skin. You'll see ripples run up and down its skin. When it's satisfied that the clearing is safe, or that it's conducive to the deer entering, it'll walk out into the clearing. The lesson in this for people is we are so trained to jump in. That's one of the key phrases that you get. Jump in and do this, hurry and do that. And this forces people to stop, use their senses, and become aware of what they're entering. So that's just one example from the animistic, how people can change the energetic way that they work with their surroundings by touching on the animistic. So there's a key place, for instance, where those two streams come right together.
Yeah, no, that's very, very powerful. Thank you so much, Barb. Another question that I wanted to ask you, it comes up a lot actually, is to be a shaman, you know, who is that for? Some people have this kind of perception that the shamanic path is for someone who was only born into a particular lineage, and so that they are the ones that get to practice and do this work. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Do you want that one?
That would be a fun one, sure. Go for it.
Anybody that chooses to be a shaman and is prepared to make the changes in their life, and the honest changes, can be a shaman. Shamans have been in every type of country, in every ethnicity. They may be labeled a little differently, country to country, but nonetheless, they're practicing shamans. It isn't, the shamanic information doesn't belong to anybody. It was given to us centuries ago as a means of walking through life and being in harmony with it. And how it's practiced comes down to different groups, different ethnicities, different people. But the basic shamanic information and the ability to be a shaman is with everybody. They just need to have the desire to do it, and they need to be willing to do the work and allow their lives to change in accordance with the studies that they're doing, and ultimately not be reluctant to stand up and say, I'm a practicing shaman.
Yeah. That's very different from what some people feel, and it makes them uncomfortable, you know, to feel like we all have that power when we do commit to the path and to do that personal healing work. Just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on, for those of us who feel called to the path and maybe, you know, have had our guides communicate that way, what do you feel like the benefit is with working with other human beings? Because it is a path of direct revelation. So we learn a lot from our guides and our helping spirits, for those of us who have been on this path for a while. So how does working with someone, you know, another human being, a teacher or guide, how does that fit in? Because some people just, you know, swear off human beings and then say, you know, that's not the way that's not the way of direct revelation. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that a little bit.
From my perspective, I do understand where those people are coming from. And in many ways, I almost agree with them. And I think that the difference between going your own route and just listening internally, solely internally, without any interaction, is simply that they are missing the opportunity to learn about themselves through others. And I think that we are all intuitively mirrors for one another, and we know it. We don't really want to admit it sometimes, but we do know it deep down inside. And having that chance to see yourself as being mirrored back to you, and then stepping into the awareness that, yes, I know I'm looking at myself. Do I like it? Do I want to shift it? Not that you're going to change it in the other person. The goal is to change it inside of you so that that reflection will change for you. I think one of the benefits of being in a shamanic community is that we all call one another on our stuff. And we can get so ingrained in our own habits and preferences and our own way of doing things that we lose the opportunity to see them for what they really are, because they become so commonplace that we just don't even recognize that anymore. But having someone in the shamanic community around you being willing to stand up and say, hey, do you not see that? If you're doing this journey all by yourself and only by yourself, like as in no other human beings, you've lost that chance to really become informed by what other people can see going on that you are blind to. And it's just human nature that we don't really see ourselves.
Yeah. And it definitely makes me, that was great. Thank you so much, Shannon. It brings to mind that middle path where we're both human and divine. And it also made me kind of think of some of the conversations that we've had before about not projecting your shadow into the world, and how working with other human beings is that's where you're going to really find out about your shadow. So that's essential. Yeah, no, that's wonderful. So, I mean, we can talk for hours about this, and I'm sure our participants today, if you're listening in, you're very eager to learn more about how you can step into the shamanic path that it might be calling you, to learn more about it, to kind of dive deeper in. And that's why I'm really, really thrilled. I'm so excited to announce to everyone that I have invited Shannon and Marv to Toronto to teach a beautiful workshop series starting in April. It's called The Shaman's Altar, and I truly can't wait. I'm very, very excited about this opportunity. Shannon, Marv, can you please tell us a little bit about The Shaman's Altar, and why it's such a unique opportunity? Tell us about what this training is all about.
The Shaman's Altar is a four-part series that we teach, and it leads a person ultimately to create their own mesa, which is the working tools of a shaman. The Shaman's Altar is following the energetic path. Within the four classes, it's broken into four directions: the south, the west, the north, and the east. Each direction deals with a broad brush of things that are happening in a person's life and gives them tools to understand some of their wounds, how they got there, and more importantly, it gives them tools with which they can start to break away and turn a wound into a source of power for them by understanding it and embracing it. The Shaman's Altar moves from that to helping us to break free of some of the ancestral influences that we have, because one thing a shaman needs to be is free. They need to be free to think themselves, to feel themselves, to understand that the way they see something is not wrong. Within the west part of the Shaman's Altar, we then teach them to break free of ancestral influences. We often can look at ancestors and see how they've held us to a certain belief system or a certain pattern. And again, we give the students the tools to break free of those and turn them once again into a source of power. We move to the north, and there we examine how powerfully teachers have influenced us in our lives, the different things that we do because a teacher told us it was supposed to be this way or it's supposed to be that way. When we're teaching the Shaman's Altar, one of the things that we teach people is we will provide them with the tools, the experience, and the information. But they need to take that information and experience it and turn it into knowledge. Because information is available from a multitude of sources, but knowledge only comes after you take a piece of information and you chew on it and you make it yours. Put your flavor in it and make it your knowledge. This is where the strength comes from in the Shaman's Altar, because the first three directions are about taking those sources of wounding and sources of influence and allowing the person to pick and choose what works for them, create their own power out of it. And then moving into the East, after they have shed many of the things that no longer serve them, and they've learned the tools and the methods of breaking free of these types of things, in the East, we look at our becoming. In other words, we take them to a place where they can start to co-create a destiny with spirit. Many people have the belief that fate will govern them, that they bounce along a stream just like a little chip, bumping into rocks and into whirlpools and eddies and so forth, and they have no control over it. Shamans don't believe that for a moment. Shamans say, no, I can work with spirit and co-create a destiny. Knowledge that comes through the shaman's altar gives them the tools of how to start working with spirit to co-create a destiny that's more to their liking than the fate that was programmed for them if they did nothing. So it's a method of taking a person from being a wounded individual that life has done these things to an individual who knows how to deal with wounds, how they can turn them from a wound into a source of power, and ultimately allows the person to begin working and co-creating with spirit to look at the way they can put a destiny together. And ultimately, the job of a shaman is to step into service. So once they have completed these 4 different courses and come away with their mesa, the working tools that they use, they can now go out and offer help to other people who are in need. So it not only serves the individual, but it serves the community at large, where people are now prepared to step into service.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. It sounds like the beauty of the training is that it's really for anyone who's committed to creating a huge paradigm shift in their life. So that, to me, that sounds like anyone, the person can be in a different place on their journey. We're all in a different place in our journey, but we can still benefit tremendously from this program. And you mentioned it is the energetic stream that it falls under. And so where are these teachings coming from? Are they from which, I guess, lineage or?
Well, giving credit where it's due, Dr. Alberto Vialdo spent many years working down in the Andes and studying shamanism, and a lot of the techniques that are taught in the shaman's altar are with his blessing. And this is where the terminology came from of working with your luminous energy field. That's really what the shaman's altar is about, is teaching people that you have an energy field around your body, and within that energy field is the blueprint of who you are. The shaman's altar teaches you to start working with that blueprint and alter it and change it in whatever way you deem fit. In addition to that, it allows you to help other people to begin working with their luminous energy fields. So Dr. Vialdo was a real pioneer in working with energetic shamanism. I mean, there's other people like Michael Harner, and the list goes on of different people who recognized the importance of the luminous energy field. But Dr. Vialdo is a real leader in that particular field. And we've spent many hours with him in his classes and learning. So it's a great privilege to be able to bring that learning and incorporate it with what we've learned for so many years in the animistic, and then ultimately to tie it to the work that Shannon did in writing the the work. It depends on who's looking, because at the end of the day, as we said at the beginning, we're all heading for the same goal.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's profound. It really is profound what we're talking about, to do healing work that our own ancestors may not have had the opportunity to do, given, you know, their own circumstances that could have gone generations back. And for me, it feels like a blessing and a huge opportunity to be able to have that opportunity now and to change the trajectory of our own life and potentially the lives of our children and our grandchildren. And you know, it just kind of ripples out from there, as we discussed. And everyone who goes through this training, and it's an intensive program, as you mentioned, it's a 4-part program. They graduate as a mega carrier. So what does that mean?
A Mesa carrier, in simple terms, is someone who has examined the various aspects of their lives, the things that were holding them back, those things that were no longer serving them, shifted it into a place of power, and has stepped into a place where they are now ready and willing to be of service to the world, which is incredibly important to shamanism globally. Marvi had mentioned that the Shaman's Altar series that we offer does fall under what we call the stream of energetic shamanism. But even having said that, we have we wanted to infuse the Shaman's Altar with pieces, important integral parts of both the animistic and the destinistic shamanism, to create a much richer, deeper program. And for us, being a Mesa carrier is more than just having created a literal mesa. It means that you have stepped into a place of your life where you recognize your own role in the world at large and in your life, where you know that you are where you need to be and want to be. And I think a lot of people are at a point in their life saying, I don't really know where I'm going, and I don't really know who I am or what I'm supposed to be doing. I think that term, Mesa carrier, sums up that time in your life where you step into a knowing about yourself, and that you are not just happier or more grounded. You are at a place where you see your role in the overall scheme of things.
Wow, that's so powerful. That's very profound. It sounds like a tremendous honor as well, and a responsibility that comes from the work. But yeah, it's that acknowledgement, that awareness that you were speaking about, Marv, you know, of how you fit into this incredible mystery. And yeah, I'm very excited, and that's why I wanted to share with everyone how they can learn more about this work and how they can sign up for the Shaman's Altar. So the information is actually at sacredinspirations.ca/workshops. So I'll actually share this link with everyone in the chat. That way they have access to it, and we'll send it over as well. You'll have it, not to worry, everyone. So sacredinspirations.ca/workshops. And yeah, so I'll actually take you to this link as well. If you bear with me here, I'll just share my screen with you. And this is what you're actually going to be looking at when you get here. And what you'll find when you read through is a lot of what we have been speaking about, and what Shannon and Mark have shared about the power and beauty of this work. And it will actually break down each of the directions for you and tell you a little bit about what you'll be learning in the south, in the west, in the north, and in the east. So the training does start in April, and it will be held at, when you scroll down, you can actually find the location information here. It'll be held at the Canadian Academy of Therapeutic Arts, which is a beautiful venue. and it's very easily accessible, both from if you're coming from downtown Toronto or the GTA, or if you're coming from the Pearson Airport, it's very accessible. And if you have questions that are more specific about accommodation options, definitely speak to me about that. As well, you will find information here about the registration for the course, and the outline is here. So no prerequisites are required, which is really amazing for anyone who wants to really get involved in this work. And the breakdown is here as well. So each of the 4 workshops, and when you're signing up for the entire program. And you're starting the first workshop in April, as we mentioned, and then that's the South. And then each one consecutively is spaced about 6 months apart. So we've made it really easy to participate for anyone who's excited about this work, and I'm sure many of us are. And you don't have to pay for the full amount up front. We're just asking for the registration portion, which is the South, $499 plus $200 that will be applied to your final workshop, the East. So for $699, an incredible value, because each of the workshops are 3 days long. You're looking at a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They're full days with a full itinerary packed with incredible things that you're going to be experiencing and learning and practicing together. And the remainder of the payments will be sent out to you, so you'll have those dates available. And yeah, so if you have any questions about registration, please write them down and save them for the Q&A, which will start in a little bit. That way we can kind of discuss it here live while everyone is together. Let me just stop the share for a moment. The incredible value of this opportunity is life-changing. I'm sure you can already feel the power of this work just by listening to Sam and Marv discuss it. And I also know from personal experience that online courses out there are amazing. There are some that are amazing, and there's a place for them. But to be able to meet in person with Shannon and Marv and the other participants for the Shaman's Altar and share that sacred space together, I can't imagine anything as powerful as that. And to be not just with one, but 2 incredible teachers and guides mentoring you, assisting you on your path. And that also means that space is limited for this training, because the intention for Sam and Marv is really to provide as much one-on-one attention to all the participants in the training as possible. And that's key to this work, when we're doing this deeper healing, and to have these guides by your side. And I also wanted to kind of touch on one thing, and maybe you can jump into, Shannon and Marv, that sometimes when we are presented with a huge life-changing opportunity like the Shaman's Altar, our first response can be fear or resistance or anxiety, and that's just a natural process of how we've been programmed, really, by our world that we've been talking about at length. And yes, it's there to keep us safe, but at the same time, it can really be what prevents us from moving forward. So if you're feeling nervous about this next step, know that that's okay. That's a part of it. But when we allow ourselves to take that step through the fear, what awaits on the other side can be extraordinary. And it's like Marv was talking a lot about feeling and really listening to our hearts with it. So if your heart is speaking to you, don't discount it. Just take note, pay attention, because that might be that first step into developing that relationship with yourself, with your own empowerment. Anything that you wanted to kind of add to that, because this work can be off the beaten path for some people, especially if they don't have the physical support around them. So how does the aspect of community play into the shaman's altar and doing this work together?
Let me paint a picture for you. If you visualize a small hill with a pathway going up the hill, just a straight pathway. And if you visualize yourself standing on that pathway, standing sideways, one hand down to the downhill side and one hand up to the uphill side, and then fill people in on both sides of that. That's the concept of teaching shamanism. It's a term called Samtsukui, the long road. And every shaman, Shannon and I included, stand on that road. We've got one hand down to help the person to the one side of us. We've got one hand up to take help from the person on the other side of us. That's the picture of shamanism. So when you talk about fear, understand that there's a hand out there for you on either side of you. You're expected to give, but you're expected to receive. And in that regard, if fear shows up, fear is a great ally, but it's a very poor master. And fear is one of the things that immobilizes so many people in today's world. We're taught to fear. Everything is fear-based. If you look at the news media, if you look at writing in the newspapers, advertising, everything is security and fear and all of those things. And that will essentially immobilize you if you allow it to.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah. So take this step, everyone. That's what we're really saying here. That fear, it can be an indicator that you're moving in the right direction, and the shaman's altar will provide you with these incredible healing tools, and the meza that you will create is such a practical, incredible way to be able to not only apply to your own self-healing, but to also work with others. If that's what you may be doing already in your life, maybe you work in a healing capacity and you want to take that deeper. So definitely, this may be what you've been looking for. And the experiential aspect that we discussed, it's just, you can read 100 books on shamanism and you can even observe beautiful ceremonies, but to really dive in and commit to this path and really getting that firsthand experience together, creating those connections, that's what this workshop is really about. That's what the training is really about. And that's where the magic and the changes really begin to happen from inside out. And I know we never really got into the itineraries, but definitely contact me for further details on that. But we'll be doing fire ceremonies. I know we talked about that a little bit. We'll have practice with these rituals and these life navigational tools that we'll have to use for forever. They'll be with us. And I do want to mention another exciting thing for everyone, and that's by participating in this webinar today, as a thank you, we do have an early registration bonus. So that is a free 45-minute one-on-one session with one of your instructors, so either Shannon or Marv, when you register for the training by February 23rd. So please take advantage of that, because that's another unbelievable opportunity to go even deeper with your instructors, especially to process some of the stuff that's going to be coming up in the work. We're going to be looking at some of the woundings and traumas and how they're impacting our current life situations, and how to transform that so that we're not victims of our circumstances, so that we're empowered beings and really whole in this world. And if that's not an incredible bonus, the next one really is just an amazing one. So when you register by February 2nd, what you'll actually get is not just the free one-on-one session with Sam or Marv, but if you make a full payment for the workshop, you'll also receive $200 off the training. That's an unbelievable, just generous offer. So please do take advantage. Register by February 2nd, and then you're just paying $17.96, and you get the everything that we've described. All 4 trainings, and they're 3 days each, and all the practical tools, and that you graduate as a mesa carrier. That's just really powerful stuff, everyone. And I'm sure there's some people who have questions, and I really do want to get to them. But before that, I just want to mention how easy it is to register. When you're on the site, you can see that you can either use a bank e-transfer and just send it over to mns@kimapi.com, or the other option is PayPal, which is very easy. If you have an account, you can just make a bank transfer to jen@sacredinspirations.ca. Excuse me. And if you have any questions at all, please use this book appointment button. Just schedule a call with me and we'll discuss everything in detail. All the course itineraries, the bonuses, the registration process, any questions that you have. And I do want to just share 1 or 2 testimonials with you. There's so many beautiful testimonials to the work of Shannon and Marv and the school, but I'll just read you maybe 1 or 2 here. Ron writes, he's a graduate from Pincher Creek, and he writes, it is true that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I just had concluded my Reiki Master training, and I was looking to go a little deeper with clients. I was having good success with Reiki, but in a few classes, the illness would return. In a few cases, the illness would return. Sometimes within a week, and sometimes as much as 6 months later. Possibly there was more I could do. Marv and Shannon Harwood appeared and provided me with countless tools that I now use. They showed me how to find the root of the problem that had created the disease to begin with. And once properly dealt with, the body could heal. Since training with Kimapi, I have a whole bucket full of tools. Amazing, just incredible. And then I just want to read one more, everyone. Andrea, another graduate, writes, when I found the Kimapi School of Shamanism, I was in a dark place as a result of a tumultuous childhood. I was filled with self-doubt and destructive patterns and habits that were ruling my life. I had no control over the events happening in my life. I was haunted by nightmares and riddled with crippling anxiety and manic depression. I had a history of drug abuse that was my only coping mechanism. Once I started with Kimapi, I began to learn new methods and techniques of healing and insight into my problems. They gave me the tools to work with imprints my traumas had left me with. I have now been studying with Kimapi for 6 years, and I have turned my past into a source of strength and power. I'm now available to use my tools to help others find new ways of dealing with their trauma. I'm forever grateful for the opportunity they have given me to have a new life of love, meaning, and fulfillment. It's just beautiful, real, true, powerful transformation that all of us deserve. You deserve that. So if you're hearing that call, even if it's just a small whisper right now, then register or contact us, get in touch. And I do want to open it up for Q&A just because it's that time. So if you have a question, please go ahead and raise your hand. There's a little icon there, and I will actually bring you over. And I'm sure everyone has a lot of questions. So let's see. Do you have your hands raised, anyone? Okay, so there was a lot of actually activity while we were talking here. Let's see, I don't see any hands raised, but I do see a question in the chat here. what about here? The question, oh, okay, there's everyone. Okay, so a question from Alexandrina. What about the idea that to truly heal, we must honor our ancestors and that our ancestral line is our power? How do we release that which doesn't serve from ancestors, like the illnesses, the beliefs, the traumas, while at the same time honoring them? After completing the year-long meta journey training, does that allow a person to start helping others heal energetically? So that's kind of two questions in one. So maybe you can address the first part first. Thanks, Alexandrina.
When we were talking about the directions, the west direction, as I mentioned, is breaking free of relatives of your ancestry. Now, breaking free of it doesn't mean abandoning it. What it means is breaking free of the energetics of it. So in breaking free of the energetics of it, you honor your ancestors, but you set them free too, because there is a co-responsibility. You are responsible to them for holding them there to continue teaching the same lessons over and over. So when you finally break free of that ancestor, you can thank them and honor them for what they've given you, but you take what they've given you and turn it into your knowledge, and in so doing, you set yourself free from that ancestor, but you set the ancestor free from you too, so that they can continue their journey as yourself.
And what was the second part of that question, Jen?
And the second part here, so let me just pull that up again. The second part was, after completing the year-long meta journey training, does that allow a person to start helping others heal energetically? And we did kind of cover that, but maybe you want to expand on it a little bit.
I do. That's a great question. And the answer is yes. And I'd like to say not just yes in the idea that you're going to necessarily step into a healing practice, which many people do. Marty and I have our own one-on-one healing practices. But way more importantly, being of service in the world is a very individual thing. Sometimes the most profound thing I do in the course of the day is to exchange a really warm, meaningful smile with someone who needs it. Being of service is listening inside to where you need to show up in the world and how you can best serve that person or situation.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you, Alexandrina, for that question. So if anyone else has a question, there is a little icon. I don't know if you can see it. It's at the bottom. So it's a little raised hand. And when you click on that, I can bring you over and we can just have a discussion here, all of us together in the, in the live format. So anything that we've talked about, questions about the Shaman's Ultra training, the registration process, the bonuses, please, this is a great opportunity to really kind of talk about it together. And don't be shy, everyone. I'm sure others have that question as well. So there's another question in the chat. I think it comes from Faina, and she asks, I guess if I'm understanding it correctly, how to explain the recent interest in shamanism everywhere. There seems to be more of an interest. I think that's what she's asking. So it's, I guess, what's your take on that?
I would say that, much as Marty mentioned earlier, the energetics of the world they're shifting, and we all, I believe, are being called forward into our own becoming. And as we sense around us people finding their way and finding it successfully, we're drawn to those very people, and often they have a shamanic background or at least a philosophy at work in their lives, and it's successful. It can't help but be. When you listen inside, intuitively from deep down inside, it overrules your brain and you're taken where you're supposed to be going.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for the question, Faina. Hopefully that answers it, and I hope I interpreted it the way it was meant to be. Yeah, so anyone else, please, this is an amazing opportunity to have these wonderful teachers here. Any questions about the Shaman's Altar training, or maybe if there's anything else that Shannon or Marv, if you would like to kind of share with our guests while they're thinking, mustering up the courage to ask their questions. Oh, there might be a raised hand. No. Looks like, oh, we do. Let me see if I can do this. So I'm going to bring Alexandrina over. Let's see if it should show up.
There she is.
Hi. Oh,
Hi.
you're mute. Your microphone is on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can. Sorry, your microphone was on mute.
On camera, and I was like, I didn't expect that. Okay, you can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead. What's your question?
Okay, let's see if I can articulate this. If somebody has, okay, there's a lot that's always been taught and said, and it's something about follow your heart, follow what you're passionate about, follow your bliss. I hear that a lot these days with people waking up to the idea that they can pursue what they really love. But so for instance, that field could be the performing arts or some sort of arts. But can somebody still go and embark on this journey, like this training that you're talking about, and still do these other things that they're passionate about? Like, can you do both, or does your entire life end up?
Sorry, Alexandrina. Can you hear that, Shannon? I know the sound is a little muddled.
Yeah, no, it's good. We heard. That's good. Yeah, it's a good question. And the answer to that is a resounding yes. Shamanism is the way that you walk in the world. It's the way that you choose to live your life. But we all have lives too. You know, many of us have other jobs and other hobbies and passions and activities going on. Shamanism is not meant to be exclusive. Your life needs to be full and rich in every way possible, and shamanism enhances that. But it doesn't necessarily negate doing anything else.
Does that answer your question, Alexandria?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Anyone else? So if you just move your cursor, maybe you're not seeing the little hand icon. Just raise your hand and we'll bring you over and we'll have a little discussion with Sam and Marv. Anyone at all? I know you've actually spent a lot of time in Peru doing this work. Can you speak a little bit about how that's kind of the role that that's played for you?
We, for years now, we've taken a group of students down to Peru every year. And the reason being that we developed a charity down there. So it was a twofold trip. Number one was to go down and work with us in providing school supplies to children in really underprivileged areas of Peru. The reason for that was the Quechuan word aini, or reciprocity. Shamanism is founded on reciprocity of balance, to give and to receive in proportion. So we started the charity to give back to the people down there, the people that practice so much of the shamanism that we call energetic. There are people there high in the Andes called the Carol. So our students go down with us, work on the charity for part of the trip, and then the other part of the trip, they have an opportunity to visit a bunch of the ancient sites down there and to actually work with the Carol.
Wow, that sounds incredible. Yeah. So many amazing opportunities to work with you. Is there anything else that you'd like to share? While I'm not sure if anyone has a question. I don't see any in the chat at the moment, but we're just kind of winding down now. But is there anything else you want to maybe speak to with regards to the Shaman's Altar, the training, or guess the benefit for whoever really wants to participate in that work?
I think that the one thing that came to mind as you were speaking is that earlier on when we were talking about the way that shamanism shows up in your life and who might be called to be a shaman and what it means to be a shaman, there is an understanding that we have all known and experienced this wonderful teaching, and that we are all shamans at heart. And so, although we are quote, quote, teachers, I suppose, the truth is when we stand and share what we experience from shamanism, we are not really teaching you, we're reminding you of something that you already know. And I think that once we really put our hearts around the fact that, oh yeah, you know what? I knew that. I've always known that. And it's more just, thank you for reminding me. So that's one of the benefits of the Shaman's Altar, I think, is to be able to be reminded in not such a gentle manner. I think when you told people that it was an intense program, we should probably underscore that. It is. It's very intense.
Yeah, no, that's incredible to, we to remember who we are. Seems like such a small thing, but it's, it holds everything in there, our true empowerment, our true higher authentic part of ourselves and that expression in the world. And that's to me, it's an ongoing process really of growth and evolution. And that's why I feel like this work, I know we've talked a lot about it, is really so many people can benefit from it. They, like you mentioned, they could be working completely different fields. It can benefit them in business. It can benefit them in, yes, if they are working with other, if they have a healing practice, it can benefit them in their relationships, because when we remember who we are, we interact completely differently with the world. Everything really shifts. So I'm really excited. I'm just checking in here to see if anyone has any questions. Anyone's listening in, and so I mean, questions will come up, I'm sure, and as we mentioned, you can definitely contact me with these questions, and please visit sacredinspirations.ca, and the details are outlined there. And remember to take advantages of the bonuses, because they do expire. So when you register again before February 23rd, by February 23rd, you're going to be receiving a free one-on-one session with the instructors. And when you register by February 2nd, which is not that far away, you make a full payment for the Shaman's Altar, you're going to receive a $200 discount and the one-on-one session. So you don't want to miss out on that. And so this has been just amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Sam and Marv. And if participants want to learn more about you or your offerings, where would be the best place?
I suppose the easiest way to learn a lot about us is we've got a couple of different websites out there. We've got Kamapi, which is kamapi.com, And it talks about us and our, you know, the training that we've got and our history and all of that. We've also got another website called www.thearchetypeproject.com, which is a look at our more recent work that we've been involved with. Everyone and anyone's, you know, more than welcome to email us at mns@kanapi.com or pick up the phone. Our phone number is listed on both websites, and I believe I saw it on your website too. So yeah, feel free to give us a call.
Amazing. So thank you for making yourself so available, and thank you for this amazing experience and for the generous work that you're doing in the world. And I really, really can't wait until April to continue the amazing journey together. And I do want to say thank you to Jocelyn for making all of this possible. You're incredible. And thank you to everyone listening live, everyone who joined in. Thank you so much. It really, really does mean a lot to me and to all of us. And to everyone who's going to catch the replay, thank you. I look forward to hearing from everyone, and I hope to see everyone in April at the Shaman's Altar. Remember the bonuses, they do expire, so contact us with any questions. Lots of ways to get in touch, and we'll provide you the contact for Shannon and Marv as well. So sending everyone many blessings and love, and very happy and abundant 2018. Thank you, everyone.